So this is my presentation for the midterm project. This is actually my second recording. I just did one and it was like 20, 25 minutes long and it didn't fit. So this is going to be the rest version. But yeah, I did mine over learning, innovation, and creativity in the organizations. First thing I have is just a quick summary. I'm going to start out with a definition of all three aspects, and then I'm going to talk about why it's needed. Then I'm going to break down each aspect and tell some stories, give some examples, and then show a step-by-step process that I found of how they did it, how companies involve these in their workplaces, and what changes happened. Finally, I got just a small little video that kind of shows you just visual representation instead of a story or facts of a company that did these things and how it changed positively. And then the last page I just have is references. So let's get started. Okay, the first thing is learning, the act or process of acquiring knowledge. Without learning in a business, without a learning environment, people become bored. Learning is a big part of our lives. In fact, we do it throughout our entire life and all of eternity. So it definitely has an effect on us. If we're not learning, we're going to be bored. Okay. Also, if you're not learning, there's no room for growth. You're going to be stuck in the same position. Learning provides rooms for promotions and new career developments. Okay, so it's very important. And then finally, the more knowledge you have, the better you can do your job, the happier you are as an employee, and the more money you're going to make. Okay? Innovation, okay, is something new or different introduced. Okay, there's two types of innovation that I found that we're going to get into a little bit later, but for right now, I think it'll do fine just saying that businesses become obsolete and die if they are not innovating. The classic saying goes, adapt or die. Okay. There's also saying nothing is certain but death and taxes, and even the businesses of death and taxes are always adapting. Okay. Extra money spent. If you're not innovating or creating new ways for your company to be more efficient, you're going to be spending more money and less profit is made. It's especially important if your competition is innovating and you are not. Okay. Creativity. And this is kind of a combination of the two, in my opinion. But it's the ability to transcend traditional ideas. Okay, it's a little different than innovation because you're not coming up with anything new. You're finding, well, you are, but you're more using. You would use the things you innovate in creative ways, if that makes sense. Okay. Innovation is definitely a type of creativity, though, so there is a little bit of a difference. Okay. But creativity is used to overcome crises. If you're also not creating, you're just going to have a lack of passion. It's going to be a pretty boring job. Okay, so it also goes in hand with learning. And if you're not creating, being creative, you're going to be one step behind and just adopting other people's ideas. You'll never be at the top of a business, a franchise, um, or any other aspect of business. Okay? So examples of learning. GM was named one of the top people, and we're going to get into their and Google's aspects of how they did this. Um, just some facts to show how big GM is. Okay. Second thing I want to get into was like Major League Sports. Okay. They they do learning environments. They help promote it. For instance, my brother was a very good athlete, and he was being drafted by a couple pro teams, and he was trying to figure out which one to go to, and they were offering more money and all these different incentives. He ended up going with the company that offered to pay for his college, his schooling, if he ever wanted to go back and get a degree because he didn't have his degree yet. He found that to be more valuable than the money the other team was offering him because he knew at some point that he wouldn't be able to play pro sports anymore, and he wanted to rely on a new career if need be. Okay, so sports actually, you might not know it, but they do a very good job of creating a learning environment. Okay, so this is Google and GM's way of creating a positive learning environment. The first is there are no stupid questions. Okay, no one is criticized when they ask a question or make a suggestion. It's a very positive area to be in. Next is interaction. Okay, group learning activities where they're doing things together, they're getting to know each other, and they're also learning at the same time. It's very important for communication and also creating that learning environment. New technology. So doing some research, a lot of companies are bringing in virtual reality. It's kind of one of the newest things out there, and it's used to help them learn. They're adapting it to help their employees learn new systems, learn new plans, and learn new projects that they're getting into. Okay. Um, Positive attitude about failure. I think we all know the best thing I can think of to go with this is Thomas Edison's quote. They asked him how many times it took him to, they asked him why he failed 150 times to create the light bulb. And he said, I didn't fail 150 times. I found 150 ways not to make a light bulb. He had a very positive attitude. He didn't let it get it down. He didn't sulk around after making a mistake. Okay. Um, the next is these companies provide internships and programs to develop your career. Okay, they don't let you sit in one spot. If after a year, a couple years, you've been doing a good job and you go, man, I kind of wish I was in this different area of the business, they'll go, okay, well, let's get you involved. Okay, they develop your career and make you a more essential part to their team. Um, Examples of successes in business innovation. So I think we all remember Blockbuster and how big they were. They were like Starbucks. They had places all over, okay? But then all of a sudden we had Netflix come along, which started out as a mailing service and mailing DVDs to you. However many times a month you asked them, you just paid the one fee, okay? Well, then the story goes that Redbox came out because a man was mad that Blockbuster wouldn't waive his late fee. So he actually came up with the idea of Redbox, which was a new and innovative way of DVD rentals. Okay, and very early on, Blockbuster went. They actually had an opportunity to buy out Redbox, and I think the quote goes is nobody wants that. They want human interaction. They want to come into the stores. Well, as you know, Blockbuster is now almost extinct, if not extinct, because of Redbox and Netflix. Netflix also had to adapt and be innovative. The mailing system wasn't working anymore, and they moved it to online, okay, and they've been hugely successful. And actually, they're one of the top businesses to work for in the world. Okay. As I said earlier, there's two types of innovation. One is need seekers, okay, and that's seeking out what people want and need. That's more innovating ways that um, people want. I said that poorly, but it's creating things according to the needs and wants of people. There we go. I have Surge up here because they were an energy drink that came out 20 years ago, almost exactly, but disappeared after 3 years. Okay, they saw the wants and needs of people. We all know how big energy drinks are now. But what they didn't do were these next two steps. They weren't able to predict the marketability and the risk of doing an energy drink and how people saw it at that time. Okay, they came on too strong. They also didn't coordinate and launch efficiently. Actually, I think they did that part well. I think it was the second part. It was my analysis of it. But you have to do all three of those things when you're doing when you're innovating for people's needs. Okay, the next one is technologies. A really good example of this is Apple. Again, 20 years ago, they were not very innovative. They were losing money and falling behind. And so they kind of stopped everything, and it all comes down to this one aspect they looked at, and it was figure out what you're good at, what we're good at, and keep doing it. What they found is with the selling the factories is that had to do with they didn't need to be the number one in production, so they sold their factories. Okay, with the stopping the research is they were actually spending a ton of money on researching all these new ideas, and then they realized they didn't need to do that. They just needed to be up to date on new innovations everyone else was coming out with. And so they stopped their research and just paid more attention to what other people were doing, then developed their innovations into their products. Then they went more professional because they realized that's what people were buying them for. And because of these changes they made back in 1997 in innovation, they're now like one of the, if not the most popular technology companies. Okay. The last two I have are for creativity. It's Adobe and Forrester. And I did not have any great success stories with these, but I do have what they've done to develop creativity in their company. The first step starts with leadership. Okay, the leader needs to set the tone. He needs to create a positive working environment and a non-judgmental atmosphere. Okay? And oftentimes he needs to bring in other people outside of the department, just because things are sometimes best seen from a new light. And he needs to be stepping up. If you're not having a leader do that, then I would suggest doing it yourself. There might be a big promotion in the future for you if you do. Regular brainstorming activities. So it's not good enough that you just tell people to do this. You got to help them. Okay, you got to get together and work on it and set aside time. And then step 3 is understanding your team's needs for creativity. Okay, these are 4 huge aspects they found in helping their employees develop, or giving them answers to their needs for creativity. Private work areas, time outside, set parameters, and allow for adaptability. Set parameters was very interesting because a lot of times people think that you can't, if you give rules, people can't be creative. They actually found it to be the opposite, where if they set, hey, don't go outside of this box, but work within it, that people were much more creative. Okay. So the main benefits is by implementing these things, you lead the industry. Okay, your innovations, creativity are going to develop your product in faster ways than other companies. When you do that, you're going to have more business and higher profits. When you do that, your employee satisfaction is going to be higher, which makes higher customer satisfaction and higher employee retention, which means less time finding new employees, and you can stay out in front. The last thing I have is just this little video on a company that changed one thing or became innovative in one thing, and it changed the company in a bunch of major ways. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. Here's the video.
The good thing in this new way of working is that it does wonders for your head. It feels great when you get inspiration and good vibes from day to day.
The world and our lives today are full of change, and we should be ready to make those changes.
Workspaces are a management tool. Well-designed spaces provide us with transparency and improved communications. They create innovation and a competitive advantage for the company. The new spaces are also cheaper than the old ones. Facts are facts. In practice, we freed up 20% of our available space. Of course, we also have to think about employee comfort at the office. It's not just about expenses, even though they are very important to the company.
The activity-based office is a smart concept because if changes happen inside the organization, we don't need to change our premises on the same scale anymore. They can be changed according to needs and usage. Managers should be interested in companies' spatial design because it motivates employees to strive for better results. Investing in the working environment is a great way to hold on to good employees.
It has a big impact on work productivity and makes it a pleasure to come to work. We used to say thank God it's Friday, but now it's thank God it's Monday.
Besides the last line being a little cheesy, I think that is a great example of being innovative, creative, and having a learning environment. They changed one thing and it was essentially renovating their company. And it cost them more money, but in the end it had much, the positives definitely outweighed spending a little bit more. Okay? The employees were happier, they had better communication and better efficiency. Just by changing or being innovative and creative in one aspect. The last thing I have is just my references. I really enjoyed doing this project. I learned a lot and I had a lot of fun. Thank you for your time.